Welcome back to our channel, and our topic for today is about Filipino culture. The history of the Filipino culture of the Philippines reflects the country's complex history. It is a blend of the Malaya, Polynesian, and Hispanic cultures with influences from Chinese and even from neighboring countries. Before the Spanish, there were already a mixture of cultures. The native people similar to the Melanesians and Australians, Aborigines, a majority population of Malays and Polynesians, and small groups of people from other Southeast Asian countries. Philippines and Guam were farthest colonies from Spain, hence Philippines was governed by Mexico. The language and the people. Most common language is English and Filipino, which is based on Tagalog. The majority Filipinos are descendants from Austronesian peoples, which are closely related to the Chamorro people in Guam and Mariana Islands. The native population were related to the Aborigines of Australia, Melanesians, Chinese, Japanese, and Indians. Religion, arts, and literature, and music. Predominantly Roman Catholic, 80% are Catholics, Aglipay 2%, Evangelical Christians 2.8%, Iglesia ni Cristo 2.3%, other Christian denomination 4.5%, about 5% are Muslim, and 5% practice other religion, those with no religions. Visual arts, painting, indigenous art, Kutkot art, Islamic art, performing arts, music and dance, cinema and television. Hispanic influence is based on indigenous and European tradition. Folk dance, music, and literature have remained intact in the 21st century. These were introduced in 16th century from Spain and Mexico. In architecture, from Nipahat by Kubo, Spaniards introduced stones as housing and building materials. Contemporary architecture has a distinctively Western style, although pre-Hispanic housing is still common in rural areas. Cuisine, Filipino cook, a variety of food influenced by the Spaniards, Westerns, and Asians. Philippines is considered the melting pot of Asia. Example of cuisine is afritada, arroz caldo, caldereta, pochero. Business, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or the PCCI, plays an integral role in the economic and the political and social development of the nation. Historically, the chamber can be traced back as early as 1890s with the inauguration of the Cámara de Comercio de Filipinos. In the first half of the 28th century, commerce and industrial trades with other Hispanic countries declined due to the U.S. administration. In 1998, marked the centennial celebration of the Philippines' independence and opened a new opportunity for both Hispanic and Filipino business to reconnect their historic ties as trade partners. Filipino traits, pakikisama, utang na loob, bayanihan, close family ties. Development of Filipino culture. Damaged culture and the sick man of Asia are just two of the many phrases used to describe the Philippine situation today. Questions such as, what's wrong? What's right with the Filipino have set many Filipino minds upon some deep and not so deep soul searching and brainstorming. Is American democracy fit for the Philippines? Is Catholicism brought by Spain partly responsible for the failure of the country to become another tiger of Asia? This is according to Manuel B. D. Jr. of Ateneo de Manila. The Spanish influence on Filipino cultures, strengths, weaknesses, and roots of Filipino character by Patricia Licuanang. The strengths of the Filipino character: pakikipagkapwa-tao, regard for others with dignity and respect, and deal with them as fellow human being. Utang na loob, the sense of gratitude. Family orientation. To the Filipino, one's family is the source of personal identity, the source of emotional and material support, and the person's main commitment and responsibility. Joy and humor. For Filipinos, they have a cheerful and fun-loving approach to life and its up-downs, which is manifested the Filipino love for socials and celebrations in our capacity to laugh even in the most trying of time. Flexibility, adaptability, creativity, perhaps resiliency. Filipinos have a great capacity to adjust, to adapt, and to some circumstances and to the surrounding environment, both physical and social. Filipinos possess a tolerance of ambiguity, creative, resourceful, adapt at learning, and able to improvise and make use of whatever it is at hand in order to create and produce. Hard work and industry. Filipinos have the capacity for hard work given the proper conditions, the desire to raise one's standard of the living, and to possess the essentials of a decent life for one's family. Combined with the right opportunities and incentives, stimulate the Filipino to work very hard. Faith and religious, deep faith in God. Ability to survive, manifested in the capacity to endure difficult times and to get by even on so little. The weaknesses of the Filipino character. Extreme personalism, manifested in the tendency to give personal interpretation to action, to take things personally. Extreme family-centeredness creates an image to which the Filipino is firstly loyal to detriment of the concern of the larger community or common good. It manifests in the use of office power as a means of promoting the interest of the family, patronage, and political dynasties in the protection of erring family members. Lack of discipline. Casual and relaxed attitude towards time and space, which manifests itself in lack of precision and compulsiveness, in poor time management, and in procrastination. Passivity and lack of initiative. Strong reliance on others, submissive to authority. Filipinos tend to be complacent, and there rarely sense of urgency about any problem. The colonial mentality to dimension, lack of patriotism, and actual preference for things foreign. Kanya-kanya syndrome. This is crab mentality, selfish, self-serving attitude. The roots of Filipino character. Number 1, environment, from home, social, economic, and political. Culture and language. History, educational system, religion, mass media, leadership, and role models. As stated by Doreen G. Fernandez, the so-called negative Filipino traits have been blamed for the weak character of the Filipino. They are the culprits and the scapegoats of our failures. The right to develop ourselves assume a development of what we are, of what our culture made us, within the context of our families, towns, and nation. As a result of the ways of the Spanish colonial government, later the American insular government, and still later the Philippine national government, The culture of the majority was taken as the basis of national policy and legislation, and the culture of the others, the so-called cultural minorities or tribal Filipinos, was neglected. Their cultures were not considered in the making of laws. These people were not usually given a voice in the government. Their needs were not often taken as part of national concern. Professor Felipe de Leon, in his published article, Cultural Identity and Development, states the following: our educational system remains colonial rather than cultural appropriate. Our colonial experience seems to have conditioned us to seek rather than create work opportunities, to adapt rather than to innovate, and to conform rather than to lead. We borrow alien thought and value system and forms of expression and produce nothing but derivatives and clones. We forget that we can only be truly productive using our own thoughts and processes. Okay, so we have low self-esteem as Filipinos borders on self-contempt, the result of which are doubt in Filipino capacity for achievement, perverse delight among the Filipinos to constantly belittle themselves. The biggest challenge then is to deconstruct the negative self-images and notion for ourselves we have embedded through years of colonial misrule and miseducation. The foundation of this transformation is education through cultural awareness, a workable, effective program of the education that can make Filipinos more responsive and sensitive to Filipino dignity, needs, values, and cultural potential assets. Okay guys, these are the questions that you will answer on a piece of white bond paper and submit it, your answer, to our Google Classroom, to the Google Classroom email. Okay, and just keep the hard copy for it will be collected after the midterm exams. Alright, so let's start with the number one question. What is interesting about the Filipino culture? And second question, what are the cultural values of Filipino? Third question, what is Filipino culture famous for? Okay, so that is a hard question. What is Filipino culture is famous for? Or in other words, why is that Filipino culture is famous? Or is there a famous culture among the Filipino? Okay, last question, number 4. What is the Filipino culture all about? Okay, so those are the biggest 4 questions about the Filipino culture. That's our culture. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe and make comments for your attendance right here in our YT channel. Thank you.